Hello, welcome into WLOY, Loyola Radio, streaming online at WLOY.org and Campus TV channel 111.1. You're listening to After the Whistle, Loyola's premier sports talk radio show, airing every Monday from 3 to 4 p.m. and every Friday from 1 to 2 p.m. Welcome into another Friday edition of the show. I am your host today, Jeffrey Bozzi, alongside my co-host, Jimmy Cody. Jimmy, how are you on this fine Friday afternoon?
I'm good. I'm good. Well, I'm pumped up for some football action this Sunday. Great Saturday slate of college basketball as well, including the Hounds are playing a game here against Bucknell. So a lot to be excited for this weekend, and I'm just waiting for it to come, basically.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot going on the sports calendar right now. I feel like there's just a lot of things happening all at once, but we're going to talk about two huge playoff games that are happening on Sunday in the NFL, and those would be the conference championship games. And we're going to start in the AFC and going on in Kansas City on Sunday night at 6:30. We have the Cincinnati Bengals taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Once again, this will be a rematch of last year's AFC championship game with the Bengals winning that game 27-24. So the Chiefs are obviously looking for some payback this time around. So I'll just throw the mic to you, Jimmy, right away. Obviously, these teams are very familiar with each other. They played in the AFC Championship game last year. They played a couple of times in the regular season over the last two seasons. And the common denominator is that the Bengals have won all three of those matchups. So Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs and company are definitely looking to get some payback and get some revenge. So I guess I'll ask you this question. What do you think the key is for the Chiefs to just put themselves in the right position to win early on? Because I feel like they did that in last year's game, but they weren't able to finish. So what do you think is the key for them?
Well, their defense has to show up. That's probably not going to happen. So throw that out the window. But I would say that's the number one thing. The second thing is Patrick Mahomes' health. They're going to have to be focused on running the ball if he's not good enough to be what he usually is. But I still think Eddie Mahomes is better than no Mahomes.
100%.
Yeah,
I mean, you put him out there at 80%, 90%, he's still going to be pretty much just as effective.
yeah, absolutely. And there was one ball that everybody was like, "Oh, it was an overthrow on the ankle." No, it wasn't because of the ankle, and it also wasn't an overthrow. It was a ball that got tipped. The one to Kelsey last week. That was one of the throws we made in the second half. But for the most part, they ran the ball, and they have a good old line. They have a really good old line. Like they're gonna run the ball, and I think that's kind of fighting fire with fire because that's really what I think Cincinnati is best at stopping is probably the run. So they're gonna have to rely on Mahomes really, regardless of what this game really comes down to is Mahomes versus Burrow. Like that's just ultimately where we're at, and it's gonna just come down to the two quarterbacks and who's able to, I think, lead their team down the ball or down the field with the ball last. I mean, that's really what I think it's going to come down to.
No, 100%. And the thing with Mahomes is we know he's coming into this game not 100%, and he has practice. And we've heard good reports coming out of Kansas City that his ankle is definitely better than what it was when he injured it on Saturday of last week. But I feel like if you're the Bengals D, I feel like if he's just sitting back there trying to sling it, I feel like you don't even have to pass rush too much. If you just kind of drop maybe 7, 8 guys in the middle of the field or in the back of the field, and you can kind of take away the 10 to 15 yard throws. I mean, I feel like that could be a recipe for the Bengals because if he's not able to move too well, he's just going to be standing in the pocket probably for the majority of the game. I feel like if you're the Bengals, you don't have to rush maybe 5 or 6 on a blitz. You can maybe rush 3 or 4, and you can still contain those medium-sized plays that they like to do, especially Travis Kelce over the middle, because he's obviously the one guy that the Bengals need to focus on. But on the other side,
absolutely, that's the guy they need to focus on
right?
because if they're not stopping him, he's going to absolutely wreck their defense.
And we saw what he did last week in Jacksonville.
Anybody can stop it.
I don't know if they do either. There's not one guy you look on the Bengals and you're like, oh, he's going to be the guy that's going to guard Kelce.
No, absolutely.
And it might have to be a by committee thing.
I think he's still going to have a monster game.
Yeah, I mean, he's still going to be effective because we all know what he can do. Not just in the red zone, but it's when you give him the ball, even the yards after the catch. It's almost like you give him a screen, you give him blocks, he can just go through people. He's just such a physical force too. But I was going to bring up on the other side, Joe Burrow, and he's healthy coming in this game. And I think an underrated aspect to his game that's kind of resurfaced recently, and we've talked about this with other QBs like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Jalen Hurts, just to name a few. I feel like he's really good when he runs with the ball. And I don't know if they call
Joe
out
Burrow?
Joe Burrow. I feel like sometimes they don't really call out of running plays because we all know what the arm talent's like. And he's got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd and Hayden Hurst to throw to. So obviously he's going to look for those guys throwing the ball. But I feel like whenever he has to scramble and get out of trouble, he always finds a way to do it.
Well, I feel like the one thing that he does really well is kind of contradictory.
He's
to
just like
saying, but
improvising on the
he's really
mind,
good
yeah.
at getting rid of the ball quick.
100%.
He never puts himself in a position to be sacked or like take a sack or like take a play for a loss. Like he's very good at, hey, if it's not there, just throwing it away or throwing whatever is open because he does have some great receivers who tend to be open. And also, too, he uses every receiver, which a lot of quarterbacks don't do that.
Yeah, he really
just go
spreads it
for, like,
around.
2 or 3.
Yeah, he doesn't
throws
favor
to
one guy.
everybody. He'll throw to Irwin and he'll throw to Jamar Chase. He's not afraid to throw to any of those guys. He has confidence in all of them.
Right.
I
And
said that last week. It was like his first 10 completions. I think 7 of them were to different receivers.
well, and the thing is, we all know that Jamar Chase is his favorite target, but he keeps the defense honest because he's not afraid to throw the Higgins, like you said, and Hurst
Absolutely.
and Boyd.
Absolutely.
And we didn't even bring up
makes the
Mixon,
whole
too.
offense better too. Yeah, we didn't even talk about Joe Mixon's.
And he's not really
Exactly.
throwing to Mixon, but you've brought this up so many times in the show. I feel like the key for their offense was to just unlock Joe Mixon, give him the ball, and then there you go.
It absolutely has been the case in the playoffs. I mean, they've been using them, and you saw what they did in the Buffalo game. I mean, they just absolutely destroyed them. Everybody was concerned about where the Bengals stood with those offensive line injuries, and they were able to run the ball with ease. I mean, they were able to run the ball fantastically against the Bills. And honestly, I'm going to expect more of the same against the Chiefs because the Chiefs aren't good at stopping the run either.
Well, I was going to ask because the Bengals O-line coming into last week.
To be honest with you, I actually think Buffalo is better at stopping the run than the Chiefs are.
I think so too.
And that is going to be a matchup nightmare. Like the Chiefs defense is like burnt toast versus the Cincinnati offense. Like they just have no chance.
Oh, no. And I thought last week coming in, the key was, is Cincinnati's O-line going to hold up against Buffalo's D? And they really did. And I think this week, I would expect more of the same just because.
Yeah, I really have no concerns.
They just have to stop Chris Jones, and that's really it, right?
I have no concerns about the Cincinnati offense whatsoever this game. Like, just because they have so many weapons that I feel like, regardless, like somebody's having a big game, especially versus that defense.
Oh, for sure. And the other thing too, and the reason why I'm gonna pick the Bengals to win, I know that I was probably gonna ask you that question anyway, but I just feel like they're more confident as a team. I feel like they're a team where they can come in and they know they can win on any given day, any given time of the day, any given stadium, all the above. I just feel like they have this confidence that I feel like is gained more throughout the season. I feel like it kind of was slow at the beginning of the year when they were 0-2 and they were kind of finding themselves and people were like, oh, are they just a one-hit wonder, blah, 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 blah. But no, they've really come on strong and they're reminding people that last year really just wasn't a fluke at all. They're here to stay.
You know what? Actually, this year's Bengals reminds me of a little bit. Last year's Bengals. Very much so an underrated team. Like, especially early on in the season, it was just kind of a team that nobody paid much attention to. Last year was a little bit different, though, because they were winning at the beginning of the season. Nobody was respecting them. This year, though, it's way different because they were coming off that Super Bowl run and they just didn't start off hot. But they're a team that knows what they can do and they have confidence in themselves because they were able to kick it right into gear. And I mean, I don't know how many games they've won in a row, but I'm going to guess it's at least like 6 or 7. I don't remember off the top of my head, but the point is they've been playing extremely well.
And the thing was,
extremely well.
Last year it came out of nowhere. They were what, a 4 seed or 3 seed, and we didn't really expect them to do much, but they won that one game against the Raiders. Then they shocked the world when they went to Tennessee and won, and then they did.
I'm sorry, it was 10 in a row. They've won 10 in a row.
Yeah.
And that includes a win over the Chiefs, by the way.
Right. And I was going to say they beat the Chiefs last year in this very exact position when no one expected them to. And I feel like you're right. This is definitely giving shades of last year's team. I think maybe the only difference is that maybe this year
they have a little bit.
People have more pressure for them this year just because they were like, oh, well, they did it last year. Can they do it again?
Because I feel like a lot of people wrote them off after that beginning.
No, for sure. I mean,
Remember
0-2.
Yeah.
Game
to the Ravens and we're 2-3.
Yeah. And people were thinking, oh, the Ravens, this is probably going to be their division.
Yeah, the
But no.
offense looked like a nightmare, and that was when I sat here and said, "Hey, they need to start running the ball." And then literally the week after, they kind of started to. I think they played the Saints, and then they really started to kick their offense.
Well, and you know what's funny too? We were talking about this a
Going
few
down to
minutes
the
ago.
Bayou Bengals.
Yeah, the Bayou Bengals won in the Bayou.
Yeah, exactly. They went
But
down there.
I feel like earlier in the year, I feel like Burrow, number one, I thought he was holding the ball way too long.
Absolutely.
And I thought that's why the O-line wasn't really good because I don't know. He was just trying
Well,
to
it's just
find Jamar Chase. I feel like more often than not. That was my second
It's
point.
a
I feel like he
fine
was
line.
favoriting Chase. Yeah,
if you hold on for it too long, naturally there's going to be sacks.
right. And I know that they have a really tough environment to play in. They obviously have to go to Kansas City, but they've done it before.
Oh yeah, I don't think that bothers them. I really don't think that that's something that
Not
the
at all.
Bengals are concerned about. No, they won here last year.
And
If they lose
yeah.
this game, it's not because of the environment. It's because I don't know. The Chiefs just played better.
Right. And the Bengals have done this before. They had a home game in the wild card round last year. They won that. Then they had to win 2 on the road in tough environments like Tennessee and Kansas City. They did both of those. Same thing this year. They had to go to Buffalo in the snow, and they did that. They won. So, I mean, they know they can do it. We all know they can do it. And I don't think it's a surprise anymore if they would win Sunday. But all that being said, it will be a tough
Absolutely.
task, though.
No surprise.
And then I would say the other thing, I feel like Mahomes needs this more than Burrow. And it's crazy to say that because I feel like Mahomes has had such a great career so far. He has the Super Bowl, has the MVP, might be getting a second one soon. And I feel like Burrow's just ascended so fast, kind of just out of nowhere that, I mean, if you beat Mahomes 4 times and you're in the Super Bowl again, and maybe they win the Super Bowl, I mean, you've said this too. I mean, they've got to be put in the same conversation.
Oh, they got to be put in the same conversation now. I think.
I mean, a whole nother conversation would be maybe you put him past Josh Allen, and I think he might be past Josh Allen right now. Joe Burrow, yeah,
he's already past Josh
right.
Allen.
I think he's past Josh Allen.
Josh Allen did not do himself any good with this playoff performance because he was not good this playoffs.
No, and I don't know. Maybe some people will say, "Oh, it's recency bias." He's just only been good for 2 years,
games.
right?
He was playing bad down the stretch too.
Yeah, I think he's definitely past Allen now. The question is, can he get past Mahomes again?
But listen, Burrow is 3-0 against Mahomes. Like, that's a very underrated, I think, thing here. Like,
and I know the games have been pretty close. I mean, the games have always been in the balance in the fourth quarter, but I don't know. He just finds a way at the end.
I was super surprised the first time that it happened because it was a road game. Like the first win that the Bengals had over the Chiefs, that was last year. It was on the road. It was really late in the season. That was kind of like whoa, like these Bengals guys, they're pretty good. That was at least the first moment that I remember being like, who are these guys? Not who are these guys, but whoa, this Joe Burrow guy can play. And then when it happened in the AFC Championship, that was the most shocked I've ever been in my life. Like I really did not see that coming, especially after we saw the whole 13 seconds, amazing drivers, the Bills. We figured that was the AFC Championship, and that was everybody. Everybody thought that too. Nobody gave the Bengals a chance.
No one. And I think another underrated thing to talk about, at least for this game, is kicking. I feel like coming in Kansas City, they have Harrison Butker. He's been a great kicker, but he's kind of been a little off this year. And I think
so has McPherson.
McPherson's been the same too. But we saw last year McPherson had a great playoff run where he made some clutch kicks. He made a few game winners too, and he made one in this very spot in Kansas City in the AFC Championship game last year. So, I mean, you're saying that it could come down to whoever has the ball last, and if it comes down to needing 3 points, I mean, you got to have someone who's going to step up and knock it down.
All right, let's look at these two teams and the different phases that they are. Number one, let's look at head coach Zach Taylor versus Andy Reid. Who are you giving the advantage to there? I'm giving it to Andy Reid, but at the same time too, like that defense is really bad, and I don't know. I think the Bengals, they might stand in a better place with their coach just because they have a more well-suited team now.
No, I agree with you. I still think Reid has the advantage. I just think he's a better coach than Zach Taylor, but I don't know. I feel like Zach Taylor's on the come up.
Yeah, and he's 3-0 against them too.
He clearly knows how to beat Andy Reid.
Yeah, absolutely, he does. That's one thing he certainly has mastered.
That's one thing he has going for him. And then I don't know. You look at offenses. I don't know if you want to go into specifics.
Very similar, I'd say. Both are very good.
I would give the
Chiefs maybe a little bit of a nod.
Chiefs and not. I would say the Bengals, at least their wide receiver, I think have the advantage.
Yeah, they have a nod. Yeah.
When you look at Chase and Higgins and Boyd, I feel like that's just a better trio than whoever the Chiefs have with Juju Smith-Schuster and
True. The only thing I'm just concerned,
etc.
The only thing I'm just concerned about when I look at the Chiefs offense is just Kelsey. Like who is stopping Travis Kelce? That's the one question I
Right.
have. And I feel like that is just such a tough thing to do. And with respect to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Hayden Hurst, I don't know. I think I've seen Jamar Chase be stopped before. Like Jamar Chase has been stopped by good corners before. By the way, the Chiefs don't have any good corners, but at least when I see Travis Kelce go up against elite players, like he still dominates. You know what I mean? Like I've seen Chase have games where he's not great.
Yeah.
That's
And
why I just
then
give the advantage.
you go to the ground game. The Bengals are going with Joe Mixon. I mean, he's a top tier running back. He's definitely someone that the Chiefs have to look out for. But I don't think you can ignore Isaiah Pacheco. I think
Yeah, dude,
he's a guy that
the
can
running game.
really be a game changer. He played pretty well last week against Jacksonville. And yeah, I think he can be a difference maker. He gives Tyreek Hill vibes, not just because he wears number 10, but he's a speedster. Once he gets past the first or second layer of the defense, he can really do some damage out in space. So I think Pacheco is a guy that the Bengals really need to keep their eye on.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look at the defenses. I mean, we're both going to think the Bengals have the edge here.
Yeah, their defense has certainly played better recently, especially the way they played against.
And then I guess my follow-up would be, do you think the Bengals D is like way, way, way better than the Chiefs D? Because I don't view the Bengals D as like amazing.
No, I don't either.
But do you think it's just significantly better than the Chiefs?
I do. I think they actually have a chance of getting a stop. Like I don't know if I can say on most drives that
You're not going to be sweating on 3rd and 10 with the Chiefs.
No. No, you still are because you're going up against Patrick Mahomes.
Right.
I mean, I think they're still both going to put up points. I just can see, if there's one or two drives where maybe the Chiefs don't have their thing together and then, the Bengals are going down the field with ease, I wouldn't be surprised if they take a 14-point lead.
Yeah.
Because
we saw them do it last week in Buffalo.
Like the Chiefs offense has to win this game. Like the Chiefs offense is gonna have to play a perfect game, can't turn the ball over, can't give the Bengals offense any extra chances. It's basically, what this game is basically? A chess match. Bengals versus Chiefs this year is a chess match between two offenses because the defenses on both sides, I don't think anyone's really counting on them. And it's basically just comes down to get points when you can, get touchdowns when you can, convert all top opportunities, do not miss field goals or, don't throw interceptions, especially in the red zone. Turnovers is going to be a huge aspect of this game. I really think whatever quarterback makes more mistakes definitely loses because, anytime you give the ball up to the other, it might be points.
Right. And I thought we were going to get a chess match last week between Bengals Bills, and the Bengals held up their end, but the Bills did not. But the Chiefs can hold up their end. I mean, we've seen it over the last few years now. So
absolutely.
I'm excited though. It's going to be a very good back and forth game. I think there's going to be a lot of points. I think the Chiefs do need to put up 30.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the winner's more than likely.
But we're both on the Bengals. We're both taking the Bengals.
Absolutely on the Bengals.
I'm on the Bengals as well. I don't know about a score. Maybe I'll go, I don't know, 30-24.
I'm going to go 31-30.
Oh, nice little nail biter. I love it.
Yeah. Bengals, of course.
Yeah, who day? There we go.
All right. So I guess we'll move on to the next game.
Sure, let's do it. The NFC Championship.
Yeah, so we have the NFC Championship between the San Francisco 49ers coming in to take on your Philadelphia Eagles, Jeff. And we also have a caller with us. I'd like to welcome in the Eddie Stankovic. Eddie, how are you today?
I'm good, guys. Thank you for having me again. As always,
thank you for joining us. Yeah.
All right. So, Eddie, you're an Eagles fan. Bozzy, you're an Eagles fan. Bozzy, let's hear from you first. Where do you kind of stand on this game? Like, it's a big game. The defense of the 49ers is very good. Nobody's taking anything away from the Eagles offense. It's just that it's going to be a really tough task. And frankly, I feel like we've never seen this great of a matchup between like O-line, D-line on like both sides. Like, am I crazy to think that?
No,
that's really
not
where
at
I
all.
think this game is going to be ultimately decided. And really, I mean, I just want to hear your thoughts, Boz. What do you think?
Sure. No, I'll go into it. So we brought up the trenches on Monday, and Jimmy, you're 100% right. I mean, this is a fascinating matchup because you have the Eagles O-line, who has one of the best O-lines in football, but you also have the Niners D on the other side, and they're just relentless. They have guys who can fly all over the field and make plays. And then you flip it. The Niners O-line is very respectable. They're very good too. I mean, they're a top unit in the NFL. And then you also have the Eagles D-line. I mean, they just have a host of guys who they can just rotate in and out of the game and can really get pressure on the quarterback. So I think the trenches are obviously going to be a huge matchup. And we talk about it all the time. I mean, teams have to win in the trenches. And this is going to be the ultimate battle in the trenches. But I'll go elsewhere. I think for the Niners D, when you're looking at them going against the Eagles offense, I think the interesting thing is going to be how are they going to defend Jalen Hurts running the ball? Because I feel like they haven't really faced a threat running the QB, at least in the playoffs. I mean, Geno Smith's not a threat running the ball. Dak Prescott, he can run when he can by choice. It's
And
just
he had some success. Dak had some success against the 49ers when he ran.
so he did. And I think the difference here is that Mike McCarthy's not really going to dial up a lot of Dak Prescott running plays, but Nick Sirianni will with Jalen Hurts. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Eagles can kind of use that to their advantage and maybe find some holes in the Niners D and kind of get them moving around and not camping out in the middle where they're going to try to get sacks. And then I would say in the passing game for the Eagles, I think you got to attack the corners. I feel like that's the weakest part of the Niners defense. And I think if you're just going to try to throw to Brown and Smith, I think they're going to win their battles more often than not. And then on the other side, you look at Brock Purdy. I mean, he's had quite the run. They've run 12 games in a row. He's stepped in and he's looked like a veteran QB out there. I mean, he's looked like he's been playing for 5 years now. And I think the key for the Eagles D is they need to get him on the move. I feel like sometimes Purdy can get very comfortable standing in the pocket and kind of slinging it over the middle of the field. I think if you get Purdy on the move and he has to kind of throw outside the numbers, I think that plays really well into the Eagles' hands. Because I mean, if you're the Eagles D, you want Slay and Bradbury, you want the secondary making those key plays, maybe interceptions that they're accustomed to doing. So I think if you're the Eagles D, you got to get pressure on Purdy so that you get him off of his spot and maybe get him moving around, because we saw last week he had a little bit of trouble moving around in the pocket. I mean, he really wasn't making a lot of throws outside the numbers. So I think that's something that the Eagles can use for the advantage. So yeah, that was a lot, but those are my thoughts.
Yeah, no, very much so. All things that I agree with. I mean, those are a lot of what we said on Monday, especially with the running game. That's something that San Francisco is definitely going to have to plan for. All right, Eddie Stank, the floor is yours. Our Eagle aficionado caller. The floor is yours. What do you have to say?
Yeah, Jeff covered a lot of good spots. Yeah, what I want to touch on as well is the offensive defense lines of both teams. Some of the like individual matchups on the line that are gonna like ultimately probably turn to be a Trent Williams, for example, like going up against Son Reddick, Josh Sweat on the edges, like that's a battle. It's gotta be won. Because Brock Purdy, we see him under pressure. Purdy is not a good quarterback from pocket collapse. When there's good pressure on him, which there's not a lot of the times we're actually the offensive line, he's looked like a rookie. Even in Seattle too in the first half, when they have pressure on him, he's not a good quarterback. So yeah, getting pressure for the Eagles is gonna be key, and then it's stopping pressure from 49ers, which Bosa is Lane Johnson's hurt. He's playing hurt. Last week he played fine through the injury, but he's a naturally to allow pressure. But Nick Bosa is obviously a lot different as well. Leonard Williams, the guy for John, the rushing the passer. So yeah, this game's gonna be one of the treasures, I think. I really think the Eagles defense is the best defensive Purdy's gonna be see all year.
You think? Wait, hold on. You think it's better than the Cowboys defense?
Yeah, I think that's close.
I respectfully disagree, but continue.
Cowboys defense is put up like 35 points to the bad teams.
I know, but I've seen the Eagles give up some points to some bad teams too. And I listen, they're here at the end of the day. Like it's nothing. Like here's the thing: I thought the Cowboys defense was given a really like bad set of circumstances because those Dak points that he just gave up and that's literally what lost them the game. That is absolutely what lost them the game was Dak. The defense played outstanding versus the 49ers, I thought. And I just really quickly, the one thing that you said Trent Williams against Hassan Reddick and Josh Sweat. I mean, no offense. I think Micah Parsons might be better than them, and he only had one sack against Trent Williams. So I think that's going to be a really tough matchup. I will say this. I actually did not think the 49ers had as good of a chance when Jeff was speaking, but based off of those two matchups, like, how could I not give the 49ers the advantages in those two areas? Like, I could see Nick Bosa versus an injured Lane Johnson. Like, I would take my chance with Nick Bosa there. You boys can't be feeling great about that, no?
Well, it doesn't help that he's injured.
He was really good last week. I mean, yeah, he might be perfectly fine. He's one of the listen, you should. He's your best O lineman. He's playing. He's healthy if he's out there. But from an outsider's perspective, I mean, Nick Bosa is more than likely the defensive player of the year this year. He played phenomenally. It's not going to be a light task regardless of who's out there. Like it could be any tackle in the NFL, and I might still pick Nick Bosa. Like I don't think that's more so of a shot at the Eagles. I'm just saying Nick Bosa is really, really, really.
Oh, he's
good.
that dude.
Yeah, it's going to be really tough.
Yeah, absolutely.
But at the same time, sometimes good old linemen prevail. Obviously, I just sat here and told you Trent Williams played great against Micah Parsons. So there's no reason that Lane Johnson can't do the same. But I don't know. Like the way I look at these teams is like they're strong in similar areas, but then they also have some differences just because I do feel like, Jeff, you're absolutely right. Like the wide receivers is an advantage for the Eagles. And I would say the same thing to you, Eddie, too, because CeeDee Lamb dominated that game. Like he dominated the game from his perspective. Dak unfortunately couldn't get him the ball, but I said this on Monday, I'll say it again. Imagine CeeDee Lamb had Joe Burrow out there. Like he would have had 200 yards receiving. Imagine he had a competent quarterback. Come on, they would have won that game. Yeah, they would have absolutely won that game with the way that they were playing. So I agree. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And then your kicker misses, and there's 6 free points from Dak. That becomes a touchdown, and that's ultimately the difference in the game. I mean, that's a really bad set of circumstances. But at the same time, the 49ers defense played absolutely perfect that game. And I don't know if they can do that versus the Eagles offense. That's definitely the one advantage that the Eagles have to playing the 49ers that the Cowboys clearly did not. They might be able to count on their offense way more.
Hopefully we score a lot like as we have this whole year with 49ers, against 49ers, but I don't know.
I mean, both of you, Jeff, I'll start with you. Do you see this as more of like a low scoring or a high scoring game?
I'm kind of in the middle. I don't think it's going to be very low scoring, but I would probably lean more on the low side than the high side. Because, I mean, do you think 24-17 is a low or high? Because I think it's kind of on the lower.
It's low.
Because that would be my prediction for
that's
the score.
Average for a Broncos game, so that's high.
So that would be my score prediction. So I guess I am on the lower end because I feel like there are going to be some points in the game where maybe they go punt, 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 punt. I don't know. I feel like the defense is going to really settle in. But I don't know. Maybe opening drive, one of the teams scores, and then maybe there's some field goals here and there, and maybe there's a huge touchdown or two late in the game. So I'm not expecting there to be absolute fireworks. Well, could there be absolute fireworks? Yes, because we've seen these teams put up a lot of points in bunches. But I don't know. I feel like it's going to be a back and forth chess match.
No, it definitely much so could be. I mean, that's what I'm expecting. I think this is going to be kind of like a low scoring, more of a defensive type game than an offensive.
I think it's going to be an overall really solid football game.
Yeah, no offense, if it's a shootout, I really don't like the 49ers in that because that means their defense is getting absolutely burned and relying on Purdy. No offense to Brock Purdy, but
Because that's why I think the key for the Niners is they need to get out to elite. If they just play into their hands of their defense and then they can run the ball with McCaffrey and Mitchell, and then they open up the play action. They can take shots with Ayuk and Samuel. I mean, that's how they're going to win. I mean, if they play to the hands of the defense and the defense is kind of carrying them, I mean, that's what they want to do. If they get down 10-0, 14-0, I mean, I would hit the panic button a little bit.
Yeah, the 49ers, I would definitely.
I would say, though, for the Eagles, I think the concern defensively is the Niners can use their skill players in a lot of ways. I think the only skill player where you really think, oh, he's just going to do just this is Brandon Ayuk. I feel like he's just a receiver who's going to be in the slot and he'll go deep here and there, but you kind of know what he's going to do. But you look at George Kittle and Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey, they can line up anywhere. I mean, we've seen McCaffrey not just in the backfield. We've seen them put him in the slot and see him use as receiver. And same with Deebo Samuel. We know that they can pitch him the ball and on these jet sweeps and he can go deep. He's really good in the middle. He's really good in space. I mean, you give him the ball in space, he's going to do a lot of damage with it. And even Kittle in the middle of the field, he gets the ball. He's a really hard guy to tackle. So you're going to need like two guys to tackle him.
Over. He has made Purdy so much more successful just because he's been a really good target. Like I have to say, I don't think if they did not have George Kittle, I don't think they'd be going on this run just because he's elevated his play so much. I mean, that's who, if you look at most of Purdy's throws and yards, it's going to Kittle. It's going to the tight ends because they're big targets and they're easy to throw to. And he does a good job of that.
Right. And I think that speaks to how you need to get Purdy outside the numbers because Kittle is usually not going to be outside the numbers unless he's, I don't know, going on a specific route. I feel
Yeah.
like if you get him outside the numbers, Kittle might not be available. So I think that's where the Eagles need to attack. But the other concern I would have for the Eagles D is the run defense. We've talked about this over and over again. And the question here is how healthy is McCaffrey? Because he's definitely going to play. It's just he hasn't really practiced much. So he didn't practice yesterday. So not sure what his health's like.
Who is this?
Christian McCaffrey.
Okay.
And I think Mitchell might have been kind of on and off with the practices this week. So their health is not in like the greatest of spots, but we know what they can be when they get the ball, especially McCaffrey. He's an all-world running back. But the Eagles defense, especially on the ground, we've seen them struggle against some running backs this year. So I think that's another area, I guess, of concern for the Eagles D. But we'll see. I mean, we know they can get to the QB, so maybe that can offset it a little bit.
All right. I think it's time for what we're all waiting for. Eddie, give us your score prediction for this weekend.
Oh wait, I think that's what you were saying. So we're only waiting for.
Oh no. If it's Hackett talk, we're waiting for that for a minute. I'm gonna
But
hit that
please
after.
bring up something else.
Yeah, no, we're gonna bring up Hackett talk after the score prediction. Don't worry.
Score prediction. Essentially, I just get to it every time. Eagles 24, Lions 10.
Okay. All right, Jeff, over to you.
I'm going to go with the Eagles winning 24-17.
All right, close game. I'll take the 49ers 21-20.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on here to another NFL topic. We got like 5 minutes before we have to take a break. Let's talk about a couple hirings that happened. The first one I want to talk about is the Frank Reich to the Panthers. I like Frank Reich. I've been pro Frank Reich for a while. Like even when he was fired, I felt like he wasn't in the best set of circumstances, never had a quarterback and still had a winning record. I mean, that's really tough to do. He was playing quarterback roulette literally every single offseason.
Yeah, he was.
And I don't know. We'll start with you, Eddie. What do you think about the Frank Reich hiring to Carolina?
I thought it was good for Carolina. I thought it was should have definitely wanted the experience. Coach, not a new guy like they just run with gold. They've seen success. Like they had success with Rivera. I guess you want kind of a coaching experience, kind of maybe replicate that. But I love Frank Reich. People go see with the Super Bowl. So yeah, I like that.
Jeff, what about you?
Yeah. I mean, I think Frank Reich is a proven guy. We've seen him do a lot with less. And I do think he was in a bad situation with the Colts last year. Like you said, Jimmy, with the QBs just coming in and out. I mean, there was no consistency there. But I think going to Carolina, they're kind of a team that's, I don't know, they're kind of on the come up. I know that they didn't have a great year last year, but I think they showed some signs for the future that maybe they can be more competitive next year. So I think coming in, he's kind of a veteran guy, and I think he can really help the young guys.
Well, I'll tell you what they have going for them in Carolina. They have a decent defense, and they have a decent O-line. They just don't really have any skill players. That's really the problem. And then they don't really have a quarterback.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing to look at is if Sam Darnold maybe is the answer, because
Well, I wouldn't say Sam Darnold's the answer. I would say Sam Darnold might be the bridge for the time being.
right. I just think
I think
do you think they'll give him a look? I think they might give him a
They might give him a look, but they also might draft a quarterback and let him sit.
right.
I mean,
But I'm just saying Sam Darnold just because I feel like when they started to win, especially in December, when they were kind of making a run at the NFC South, he was the guy at QB.
he was the guy at QB.
But was he the reason where they were winning? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know.
mean, he wasn't turning the ball over like he has in the past, so I guess that's a positive. But it's not like they're winning because of Darnold. He did have some nice throws, I will say. He played a lot better than I thought he would during the threat. So maybe he's earned himself another opportunity, but I can't imagine it would be anything like long term at all.
I also forgot about Corral too. He missed the year,
That's
so
right, they do have
he could be in the
that.
mix too.
Yeah, I like him a lot too. Honestly, they might give him a shot over Darnold.
Yeah, he messed up his ankle in that third.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know. I would not be surprised if he got a chance over Darnold. I mean, to start.
Yeah, I'd rather see that.
Yeah, I mean, then if you just stink, I guess you just tank the next year, right?
Yeah, I feel like he would have to prove himself a little more just because he hasn't played in a year. But no, he definitely deserves a shot. He's
Yeah.
talented.
Yeah. I'm sure Carolina will go and do something stupid to a quarterback. So, because they are the Panthers, and they won't just do what we're saying, which is the easiest thing. Just play Darnold, and if it goes well, it goes well. If not, tank. Because the NFC South will probably be wide open next year.
No, they were in the car talks actually.
They were in the car talks.
They're like, yeah, they're among the teams. Yeah, it was like Jets, Texans, and Panthers. Wow.
Jeez. Oh my God.
Jets are going on like Rodgers now. But I saw the car having a combination. That would be just something.
Okay, yeah. So let's move on to the next thing. Hackett getting hired by the Jets. I'm going to take the floor here for a sec.
Yeah,
Nathaniel Hackett was horrible. I mean, I sat here every week and complained about this guy. I told you guys he doesn't know how to take timeouts. He doesn't know what he's doing. He's playing with his headset as Russell Wilson is getting screamed at by D linemen because he's saying it's Russell Wilson time and we're down 24. I mean, this is a disastrous guy to have coaching. We got guys fighting on the sideline on Christmas. I mean, we're getting our behind kicked by these sorry Rams. And this guy was at the helm for all of it. He was at the helm for chaos. Why would the Jets, of all teams, want to bring chaos into their facility? I mean, the Jets are literally the most cursed franchise there is. The last thing they should want is Hackett anywhere near the doors of their building, nonetheless calling the plays for their franchise. I mean, come on. He didn't even call the plays in Green Bay. If I hear one more Jet fan say, oh, he was a great O coordinator. No, he wasn't. He was great at being Rodgers' water boy when he was in Green Bay. LaFleur called the plays. I mean, seriously, LaFleur called the plays. It's not like Hackett did. And when Hackett called the plays last year in Denver, it was a train wreck. That is a fact. Yes, because he was horrible. He was horrible. He should have gave up coaching duties week 8. The season might have actually had a chance at that point because they played so much better once he was gone. So, yes, maybe I am just a sour Broncos fan who thinks that Nathaniel Hackett sucks. But you know what? Nathaniel Hackett does suck because Nathaniel Hackett put up 15.5 points per game when he was calling the plays. He's horrible. And he had a 9-time Pro Bowler. He's not going to have that regardless of who the Jets quarterback is. I mean, I'm sorry. And more than likely, it's not going to be Rodgers. But just for the sake of this argument, if it is Rodgers, great. They get Rodgers. That's great. They can have their Favre 2.0 era and go 9-8 and miss the playoffs. That would be awesome for them. But when they don't get Rodgers and they're out there with Zach and Carr and I don't know Flacco as the 3 quarterbacks and it's Hackett in there, I mean, don't be surprised when the team's like 6-11 next year. Like it's going to be a disaster. I'm just saying that. I think Nathaniel Hackett is absolutely the worst coach I have ever seen in the NFL. Like McDaniels was legitimately, I think, a better head coach than Nathaniel Hackett. Freddie Kitchens was a better head coach than Nathaniel Hackett. Urban Meyer might have actually been a better head coach than Nathaniel Hackett. That's not a lie. I think that's debatable. Who was better, Urban Meyer and him? I mean, they got fired in their first season. The man could not last a full season. And you want that as your OC? Come on. I don't either. And now we're going to. No, I know. It's all wishful thinking. And we got to take a quick break. Eddie, thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much, Eddie.
We'll hear from you hopefully after an Eagles win, but maybe not an Eagles win.
We'll see.
Yeah, all right.
Fly, Eagles, fly. All right. Thank you, Eddie. We'll take a quick break here, and after this, we'll be right back discussing more football and other topics. Welcome back into WLOI, Loyal Radio, streaming online at WLOI.org and Campus TV channel 111.1. You're listening to After the Whistle. I'm your host, Jeffrey Bazzi, alongside my co-host, Jimmy Cody. We were talking the 2 NFL conference championships before the break, and we got into some coaching hires as well, some coaching moves that have taken place over the last week or so in the NFL. And Jimmy, there was another one that happened very recently, and it involves former Jets offensive coordinator Mike LaFleur.
Yep, Mike LaFleur.
He is moving on to Los Angeles, where he will join Sean McVay as the new Rams offensive coordinator. So, Jimmy, what are your thoughts? Do you think this new combo out in LA could maybe revitalize the team a little bit? Because obviously they had an awful season after the Super Bowl season. So, yeah, do you think this is going to be a good move for the Rams?
Well, I think the first question is, who is Sean McVay still going to be calling the plays? Because I'm pretty sure Sean McVay calls the plays now. So if Mike LaFleur doesn't have to call the plays, then it's not as much responsibility. At the same time, yeah, Sean McVay is still the play caller. So Mike LaFleur is not, he's going to be doing like a Hackett, like I'm not actually calling the plays as OC type thing. And then he might be able to flourish in that role. It's not nearly as much responsibility as being the play caller for the Jets. So it's I guess you could say it's just another job, but it is a little bit of a demotion. But at the same time, too, I think he's going to get to learn a lot from McVay. I think McVay is actually one of the really underrated, not underrated coaches, but you want to talk about in just scheme and smartness. I think he's underrated in that way just because people don't really respect him in that way. Like they just think of him as, oh, this young guy is just winning games. They went all in for this one year and they had a great season. But I think he's a great X's and O's coach. I really do. I really think he knows what he's talking about. And I was pumped when Baker went there. I think Baker, it would do him a solid if he went there for another year. I think he should go back there and learn more. Like seriously, I don't know how much longer Stafford's going to be playing, and also maybe Baker will just give him a chance to just continuously have a job
Right.
because he knew the system. I thought pretty well. I thought he played pretty well given the circumstances.
Right, he did. And I don't know. I
He really
mean,
made one bad throw against Seattle, but otherwise he looks kind of okay.
he did. And God forbid something else would happen to Stafford. And I obviously would not want him to be out again for any injury. But if Baker Mayfield had to step in again, if he had Cooper Kupp this time around, I mean, that's a huge weapon to have at your disposal. So
Yeah,
getting him back would be huge for the Rams. And also, I think for just LaFleur's sake, if you're going in there with Stafford day one, week one, I mean, that's got to be the key. You got to get him healthy because Stafford's a better option than Mayfield. But I don't know.
yeah, no,
There's a lot of things they need to fix,
he
but can they fix them? Yes.
He absolutely is. I'm just talking about the team as a
Right.
whole.
And Stafford's getting a little older.
Yeah, I'm
In his
but
mid-30s.
he's getting it back next year. I'm just saying I think it's a good place because Baker was successful and he looked good, and it seems like he understands the system well, and you want to go where you can succeed, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's going to be the type of place that this is for Mike LaFleur, and that's it. That's really all I have to say.
Yeah.
It's probably one of the better places.
And I would say for LaFleur, I hope the Rams get him some weapons that he can use because I feel like once Cooper Kupp went out, they didn't really have much.
No.
And I think they need to sign maybe 2 or 3 guys
Well,
offensively, and hopefully they find some gems in the draft.
I felt like once Cooper Kupp, well, the difference from when Cooper Kupp's present to when he's not present is like night and day because when Cooper Kupp's there, I feel like it opens up the entire offense more. It just does.
Yeah, and then for the opposing defenses, you have to focus on it so much that you kind of forget about other guys. So, yeah, I do think it's a good move, though. I think it's a good move for the Rams.
And really
Oh,
quickly,
yeah.
I want to mention this news involving D'Amico Ryans. Ian Rappaport is saying that, after the conference championship week, because they can't meet this week, the teams cannot meet with the coordinators this week, the coaching candidates who are involved. So he would be moved to next week, but they said there's a chance that he could take the Texans job.
Interesting.
It looks like it's between Denver and Houston, but we'll see what happens.
Yes, we will see.
All right, so let's move on to some college basketball talk, shall we, Jeff?
Yeah, let's do it. So the Loyola Greyhounds, they have a game right here tomorrow on this campus. They play Bucknell at 1 p.m. And this is a big game for the Hounds. They're coming off a tough loss up at Lafayette on Wednesday, a 16-point loss, 62-46. But they have a chance to bounce back on Saturday, and they really need it. And I feel like this is just a golden opportunity to get a win and kind of get the confidence going a little bit. And I know the team has been going through it a little bit, but Jimmy, I'm not sure if you've seen any of the Hounds games in the last week or two or so, but I don't know. Is there one thing that stands out to you where they really need to fix something? I mean, is there one thing that's really bothering you more than other things?
Well, I mean, it's the same stuff. Obviously, we want to play clean basketball. It's turnovers, it's free throws, it's the typical things. Coming off the loss to Lafayette, not great. We only put up 46 points. That's just not going to cut it at the end of the day. We're definitely going to have to put up more than 46. And we're only shooting 32% from the field, 24 from 3. And, we won the turnover battle. We had less. We just shot so poor that we couldn't get the ball in the basket, and we obviously couldn't put enough points. That's really what killed us. I mean, it was just they were sinking shots, we weren't, and sometimes that happens. And I hope for our sake, coming back to the home gym, maybe we can make some things happen. But I mean, I just don't see a chance. I don't see us like we're gonna have to figure out how to play basketball in a different way because clearly the way that we're doing it is not great. Like us trying to put up points is not great. We're gonna have to really shift our attention to defense, and that we're gonna have to try and compensate on that side of the end, and on that side of the floor because when you're not making shots, you got to stop them from scoring, and we don't always do that when we're not putting up points. You know what I mean? That's really where we're at.
Right. I just feel like every game, the same
It's
things.
always something.
Find a way
It's
to
like, I
keep
don't even know what to
occurring.
say because it's always something. It's either the turnovers, the missed shots, the free throws, the going ice cold on offense. Like we just always do so many things that I'm just like,
I know. I feel like, I don't know, when they're making shots, it's almost like they can't play defense, or when they're getting stops, it's almost like every open three doesn't go in.
yes.
It's almost like one thing is clicking, one thing's not, and they can't have both clicking at the same time. And I feel like I repeat myself a lot, but you're right. These things just keep happening. And hopefully they can all click tomorrow. I feel like tomorrow is an opportunity where they are very capable of beating a team such as Bucknell, who's the only team that's below them in the standings as far as the Patriot League goes. So hope they can get a win there and kind of right the ship a little bit, just gain some confidence going into February. Because I do believe that we might have another game in January, but I could be wrong. I'll have to check the schedule. Let me check it now. Actually, yes, we do have a game Monday night up at Colgate, and we know how tough of a test that would be.
Yeah,
So
that's gonna be really tough.
maybe we can get a win tomorrow, and then maybe they'll be feeling good. So we'll see. But Jimmy, I'm not sure if you've seen a lot of the college basketball landscape this season because there's been a lot of good action recently. But I would say there are certain teams that stand out more than others. I mean, you're looking at the top five here. You have Purdue, Alabama, Houston, Tennessee, and Kansas State. There's other teams though, and you're looking at the top 25, such as Arizona, who's probably going to be around, might make a late run in March. You got UCLA. We know what they can do. They still have Tiger Campbell and Jaime Jaquez Jr. from that Final Four team back in 2021. You have a team like Kansas, who are the defending champs, and they're definitely not as good as last year, but they're right there at 16-3, and they have Grady
16-4.
16-4. Sorry, it says 16-3 here, but
Oh, really?
yeah,
16-4 on mine.
that's weird. I think 16-4 is right because they did lose to Baylor on Monday night. It is 16-4. That's weird. It says two different records in two different places. Whatever. They have Grady Dick and Jalen Wilson who can both score. I think the question for them is, can they have other guys score? They got teams such as Texas. I mean, Texas has always been a solid team, but they've crumbled under pressure in March. So
and they've also,
we don't know.
They also lost their coach. So
that's a
it's gonna be
huge
really
storyline.
Tough to overcome. Yes.
And you have another team such as Gonzaga, who started the year, I think, at number 2. They've kind of slipped a little bit, but they're still there at 14, still very respectable. The other teams such as Auburn and Baylor. I mean, Baylor won it in 2021. And you have other sleeper teams like Miami. And then I'm going to bring up Clemson because our friend Lane Whitla, she wanted us to talk about Clemson basketball. And I was doing some digging actually before the show. And Jimmy, they play a pretty tough conference, the ACC. I'm not sure if it's as tough this year as it has been historically in previous years, but they've been on fire. And I know that they're at 24. I mean, there's a lot of teams that they're looking up at, but I believe they only have one loss in January, and their next 4 games.
One loss in conference.
Right. I mean, that's very impressive. And they've been kind of steamrolling through their opponents, and they haven't played, I guess, top tier competition, but coming up, they have some games against Florida State, which they should win because Florida State is having, unfortunately, a rough year. It's just weird because Florida State's usually pretty good, but they have some games coming up. And I'm talking about Clemson. They play Miami, who's number 20. That's a big home game next Saturday. And then they go to UNC. And we know that UNC last year was in the national championship game. They made a crazy run as a lower seed. So I don't know. I like these teams who are kind of down in the rankings, who could be sleeper 5, 6, 7 seeds. I love them every single year.
There's a lot of teams like that. I mean, I'm really quickly, we haven't given this team a shout out, but I want to give them a shout out. The Rutgers Scarlet Knights. I mean, their basketball team has been playing really well, dominating win the other night over Penn State by 20 points. When they're at home, they're just such a dangerous team. They can just make things happen. Obviously, they beat number 1 again this year. They beat Purdue.
They did.
Earlier.
And they do have our old friend, Cam Spencer.
Yeah, they have our old friend Cam Spencer.
It's been a nice spark plug.
Phenomenally for Rutgers right now. But the Big Ten in general is just such a wide open conference. So I'm going to be very excited to see where that goes.
Yeah. I mean, they can play with anyone. I remember either last year or the year before, they played Houston in the second round of March Madness. They were right there. They were winning for a good chunk of the game. And unfortunately, they couldn't close it out. But I think they're right there with some of these other teams. I mean, any given night they can beat anyone. But I just want to go back to Clemson real quick. They're on top of the ACC, and usually we would see UVA or UNC or Duke at the top, but no, Clemson is sitting up there all alone at 9-1. And the thing for them is they have a lot of balanced scoring. I mean, you look at Hunter Tyson averaging 15 a game. You have PJ Hall who's averaging 14 a game, and you have other guys such as Chase Hunter and Brevin Galloway who are averaging 14 and 10 respectively. They have a lot of guys who they can go to offensively. I don't know, for these teams, I think going into March, it's obviously about playing well. And you brought this up over the years on this show. I feel like teams that are hot going into March are really good teams to pick to go far.
Absolutely.
And I think February is a very key month. And I know the conference tournaments are obviously important because there's some teams that are always in the bubble and they kind of need to punch their ticket, or they need to make some kind of run where they can improve their resume. But I think February is kind of the month where you see the action really heat up because we have a lot of good games coming up. Even this weekend, we have a lot of good games on the slate, especially with that SEC Big 12 challenge, I believe. I think it's SEC Big 12, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if it was like ACC Big 12. I think it's SEC Big 12. We have Texas and Tennessee going at it. So
Yeah, that's gonna be a great game.
a lot of good games going on. So
And
yeah,
Kansas at Kentucky.
yeah, the battle of the Blue Bloods.
Yeah.
I think for Kentucky, and I see you're wearing the Kentucky sweatshirt. I know you're a fan of Kentucky, but
Toshiba is gonna dominate the board.
he's a beast down there.
Oscar Toshiba is a beast.
And I don't know if Kansas has a guy that can
I don't-
contain him.
I don't know.
I mean, I
think
could
that's
say that
good-
about
I
any
think that's
team.
a good matchup for Kentucky because they're home. Number one, they play a lot better. Number two, Kansas isn't playing that great right now, and Kentucky's been playing better recently.
They
So it
have.
kinda just looks like it's going to be a better matchup than an unranked team versus number 9.
Right. And is the game at Kentucky? Is it
at
home?
Kentucky.
I mean, that's a big advantage for Kentucky.
Yes.
And I think for Kentucky, at least defensively, you got to shut down Grady Dick and Jalen Wilson. Those are the top two guys in Kansas. You got to make the other guys beat you because we saw last Monday, Baylor, when they faced Kansas, they kind of let Grady Dick and Jalen Wilson score, but Grady Dick didn't do too much just because he was missing a lot of his open shots, but Jalen Wilson really hurt them. It's just none of the other guys stepped up. So if you're Kentucky, if you can force other guys to beat you on Kansas besides their top two guys, I mean, I would love their chance of winning. I mean, I'd pick them to win even like you just did. So yeah, there's a lot of exciting games in the slate. And like we both said, this college basketball action is really going to heat up as we go into February, which, believe it or not, Jimmy, February 1st is on Wednesday, which is crazy to believe. I feel like January is just flying by. I mean, we're already at January 27th. I mean, this month is just flying by, but is there anything else that you want to add before we log off here for the week?
No, I can't think so.
Can't wait for Sunday.
I'm so pumped for Sunday.
Even tomorrow. I mean, I know there's no football tomorrow, but there's a lot of good NBA games and college basketball games on. So feel free to tune into those and the NFL games for sure on Sunday. So thank you as always for listening. We will be back on Monday recapping the conference championships. So do a little mini preview of the Super Bowl, but we'll talk about other things as well. So thank you once again for listening and have a great weekend.